First though, can you tell me what's wrong with this anti-sex crime advert?
Oh, am I not good enough for you, son? Why are you not chatting to me? I said you look good and you don't want to go out with me. Can you hear me? You look at me when I'm talking to you.
Well, the problem there is that it was a black man harassing a white woman, and one person complained, and Transport for London were forced to pull the advert because apparently it reinforced negative racial stereotypes. The Advertising Standards Authority said the advert must not appear again and told TfL to ensure that any future campaigns were, quotes, socially responsible. So now I think only white people can be sex criminals in adverts. But now, can you tell me what's wrong with this advert?
The man in the grey suit is staring at you. Would you report it? It's him again. You can feel his breath. Would you report it?
Nothing is wrong with that advert, apparently, because that is a white man harassing a black woman. Nobody complained. The advert doesn't reinforce negative racial stereotypes. So do you see what the rules are here now? White people, bad. Everyone else, good. We have had some absolutely ridiculous advertising campaigns in the past. Do you remember this? There's no place for bullying, discrimination or harassment in our army. And they chose to articulate that with a small, skinny, white blonde woman seemingly pinning a black guy against a wall while he says something along the lines of, "No, thank you, darling, I'm a happily married man." But it looks like she's not taking no for an answer, doesn't it? We've also had this from the BBC. People who blare music out of their mobile phones on public transport were told to wear headphones. And the BBC chose to articulate that with a picture of someone who looks like an elderly geography teacher. Honestly, what on earth was he blaring out there? A David Attenborough documentary? A podcast from The Guardian, do you think? At least we're not as bad as what's been happening in Germany. Now, after a spate of sex attacks by illegal migrants or men of North African appearance in places like Cologne, the authorities thought that this advert was a good idea. A red-headed white lady groping a one-legged brown man's backside in a swimming pool. Yeah, I mean, that is, of course, what's going on right across Europe now, isn't it?
Mit Handschuhe auf. Besser ist das. Au! 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 Ah, ich habe irgendwas abbekommen. Ich habe irgendwas gegen den Kopf bekommen.
Adverts versus reality. But getting back to Britain, let's have some facts. Now, according to the Centre for Migration Control, in the City of London area, around 66.9% of the arrests for sexual offences were foreign nationals in 2024. And foreigners are reportedly 3 times as likely to be arrested for sex crimes than British citizens. Now, look, obviously I am not saying that all foreign nationals or non-white people are sex offenders. But what I am saying is, to me, it's not reinforcing a negative racial stereotype to run an advertising campaign that happens to cast a non-white person as a sex attacker. There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We are, of course, joined by Director of Public Services Mark Littlewood, Reform UK's Jamie McIver, and broadcasting legend Nina Mishkov. So, Mark, am I right in saying that the rule now, I think, is that only a white person can be a sex criminal in an advert?
It's probably worse than that. It's got to be a white man in a suit, right? Otherwise, so probably can't be classist either. The Advertising Standards Authority is a disgrace. It should be scrapped. There is no need for it. One of its rules that nothing in an advert can reinforce a negative stereotype around gender or race is absurd. So, for example, you couldn't show an advertisement showing that, I don't know, a bloke isn't very good at doing the housework, because that would be reinforcing a negative stereotype about men. Great. And of course, stereotypes, usually have a certain degree of truth in them, right? I mean, you stereotype things because there is a propensity for certain people of that type, to act in that way disproportionately. So this is complete madness. And I don't know what we're supposed to show next. Elderly women preying on young men on the tube. Is that how we're going to describe sexual harassment on London transport? Madness.
You joke about that, but the British Army advert that we showed earlier on, I don't know if you might be able to bring that back up, the one for the British Army. It wasn't a million miles away from
No, exactly. So we are basically unwilling to live with the world as we actually statistically find it for fear of offending some minority or other. What a useless, pointless way. And you described it as an advert, Patrick. Really, this was a public information campaign.
Yeah.
And those should be based almost entirely on the reality of what people face, not on the fantasy of the woke brigade at the Advertising Standards Authority.
Well, I was going to say, this is literally a prime example of the lanyard class in this country that want to try and provide a narrative of how, white English class people, white working class English people are the baddies and the goodies are the people that deviate from that. And what I think is so depressing, actually, for the country is it's become normal now. It's become normal to the point where people now watch these adverts and they're not looking at the message, they're looking at the other message that is trying to be portrayed in an indirect way. The reality is, whether it's a black man or a white man, or a black girl or a white girl, a man preying on a woman in a sexually harassing way is absolutely wrong in any scenario. But the fact of the matter is, it's now become so absurd the way these advertising authorities have conducted themselves. We're not debating whether that advert gave the right message or not. We're now debating the characters and the actors that have been chosen, because they've not been chosen for their actor credentials, have they?
It's one complaint is what we understand is all that took. So that's apparently what it takes now, Nina. Just one complaint to have an advert or a public service broadcast pulled. It seems ludicrous, that.
On the surface, it does seem ludicrous. But as I understand it, if you look at the story a little further, that clip of the black guy and the white woman and the other white guy at the side was one of 3 that was part of a longer public announcement of 2 minutes. And within those other sections, there were different races. Now, London is a very, very diverse city. We have to understand that. And the races break down as about 56% of white people, 20% approximately Asian, about 13.5% black, and then there's mixed, and that makes up the 100%. So I was looking at a survey today on where they asked women, young women, how often they'd been harassed in London. And 86% of them said that they'd been harassed in one way or another, be it catcalling or touching or just worse than that, in the last 2 years, which is a shocker. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because this is all male crime on women. Within that, there was a breakdown of who was more sexually and racially harassed. It turned out that it's actually black women or women of mixed race or non-white, put it that way, were more racially harassed than white women.
But so what?
No, I'm saying.
But if
so
you
we
look
have to
at
be.
the figures, and again, I don't take any pleasure in saying this
No.
at all, and I wish that this wasn't the case. But we've got a kind of plethora of statistics here which would indicate that, unfortunately, foreign-born men, now some of those will be white, by the way, that's not a racial thing, foreign-born men are responsible for a huge number of the arrests when it comes to sexual assault, especially in the capital city. We've also had stats that came out about Afghan men being around 14.5 times more likely to commit a sex crime. We're also, of course, embroiled with the fallout of the Pakistani rape gang scandal. Now, again, I will stress this. White people are sex criminals as well, and that is a terrible thing. But if you're doing some kind of public information campaign, it might have been a good idea when authorities knew that there was a problem with the Pakistani rape scandal to do adverts specifically about that. But they wouldn't have done that, would they, because of fear of racism?
No, that's exactly right. And the odd thing here is the Advertising Standards Authority seem to have no sense of proportionality. Let's imagine, for example, that Transport for London over their history have released 1,000 public information ads. If in every single one of those it was the same black guy who was the baddie, you might scratch your head a bit and say, hang on a second, this seems completely out of whack with proportionality. But as you correctly showed, there was a range of adverts, even in this series of adverts. Therefore, to pluck out the one that has features the criminal, the baddie being black, when it was almost, if you like, offset by one, where the leering guy is white. This is absolute insanity. You cannot possibly claim that Transport for London are, continually, historically, repeatedly displaying that it's only black people that commit crime. There's one 2-minute advert which shows one black man committing a crime, harassing a woman at least. That should be completely acceptable. And the idea that this totally unaccountable, unelected, untouchable bloody Quango is able to cancel this advertisement is a disgrace.
But there should be. But the thinking behind this, as I understand it, was that, show the whole 2 minutes and show the whole array of people, which seems to me to be fair, because London is a whole array of people. But you cannot guarantee that somebody who's seen that particular section, which is black on white...
Because
there's one advert, which is a black guy harassing a white girl.
But hang on a minute.
Why can't you watch that?
But forget the content of the advert. The big part of this story, in my opinion, is the fact there's been one complaint. Just one complaint. I'd like to complain about the fact that London has been all about Ramadan, yet at Christmas, you don't see the word Christmas being advertised in the same streets where we've currently got Ramadan everywhere.
Oh, you do. There is Christmas everywhere.
Not the word Christmas. One complaint.
Is.
So does that mean one complaint from a Londoner about that and what we're going to take them all down? The idea that one person doesn't like it means that the whole thing has to go. That's what I... One person.
They're not supposed to ban adverts based on the mailbag. They're supposed to look at the complaint and whether it stacks up or not, whether you've received it from one person or a million. So the baddies here might well be the one complainant who seems to be unbelievably sensitive to these matters, but the real baddies are the people who adjudicated this at the Advertising Standards Authority. They should have allowed this advert to go ahead whether they had received one complaint or a million.
But they should have shown it in its entirety, so you see the whole extent, because you can't guarantee that one person sees just that one thing and then sees the others.
They did. So what?
But no.
Okay, but some of the other ones that we showed in that monologue I did that a slightly older clip of a previous advert, which was a white bloke kind of sexually harassing a black woman. Right, that advert I think was allowed to stand. But in the newer version, one of the clips was a very angry kind of white bloke just really being very aggressive towards a black woman, being kind of quite racially aggressive towards her, fulfilling what some people might argue was the very stereotypical white van man after 9 pints of Stella getting on the public transport and being vile towards someone based singularly on their skin colour. Now that advert, as far as the Advertising Standards Authority were concerned, as I understand
let it run.
That was fine. you could do that, even though that would have fulfilled, in some people's eyes, a stereotype.
Yeah.
But the one where, and by the way, can I just say, I watched that and I thought that was very well acted. I don't think that anyone in their right minds looks at that advert and thought that that particular black guy there is in any way a sexual predator or that it is representative of all black people. I saw that as actually a really quite powerful campaign that I think was good. And now, all of a sudden, people are talking about, oh, well, it enforces the stereotype of black people being sex criminals. A conversation we would not have been having. I would not have come on television tonight, probably, and read out some of the very unfortunate stats involving ethnic minorities and sex
crimes. And this is the point I always make about DEI, is the fact of the matter is it is making things worse for people that are genuine victims of racism. We know racism is a thing. We know people are victim of it. But all these do-gooders, probably actually white people in an office somewhere with a rainbow lanyard on, are the ones out there actually voting green, are the ones out there who are making this an issue, who are actually stirring the pot and causing racial tensions, and actually, I think, doing a lot of bad where there has been some progress in society. It's the same with the LGBT movement. There's a lot of gay people that are not discriminated now, but because of all this trans stuff, suddenly you're finding division everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think that there should be... We have to accept as a country that, unfortunately, there are some cultural issues that we've got when it comes to women and the age of consent. Right, and we are seeing that time and time again. You know, if we're running adverts about all men, and that will include white men not sexually assaulting people, good, I'm all for that. But we should actually be doing more work, I think, in certain communities, try to tell them what is and isn't acceptable. And obviously now we can't do that, apparently. So
it's not to Nina's point that you kind of like can't show a movie with a black man as a baddie unless you also force the viewer to see one with a white man as a baddie. I mean, that's just completely unpoliceable. I don't think anyone would have watched that 2-minute clip and thought all black people sexually harass white women on a bus or a tube. No human being would have reached that conclusion. Consequently, the advertisement should not be banned.
You're wrong. People will reach that conclusion.
All black people molest all white women, do they?
And yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. It's reinforcing. It is reinforcing that. But people do jump to that conclusion.
That in itself is a little bit racist as well. Do you not think that just looking at the bloke and going, because he's black, he must be...
Of course it's racist.
That in itself.
Of course it's racist. But there are racists out there.
People that view it through that lens are wrong.
Adverts not going to make them racist.
Well, look, a Transport for London spokesman has said, our aim is to ensure that our advertising reflects London's diverse population and does not perpetuate any stereotypes, just as we ensure that our services are as fair, accessible and inclusive as possible. We're sorry that this social media advert, a shortened version of the full 2-minute advert that includes a diverse range of ethnicities, falls below our usual high standards when viewed in isolation. The Advertising Standards Authority said, although we understood that TfL had intended to present a range of diversity and scenarios across their campaign, we considered the ad, when seen in isolation, had the effect of perpetuating a negative racial stereotype about black men as perpetrators of threatening behaviour. On that basis, we concluded that the ad featured a harmful stereotype and was irresponsible and likely to cause serious offence. Goodness gracious me. Anyway,